My wife looked at me and said I'm moving out tonight. Don't call me again, then moved in with her personal trainer. I said fine, filed for divorce the next morning and cut off her luxury lifestyle I'd been funding. I never thought I'd be posting here, but I figured some of you might learn something from my experience. So here goes. First about me. I 35 male started as a helper on construction sites at 22, making money but grinding 80-hour weeks. Not because I'm some kind of workaholic. I just wanted more than what I came from. My dad bailed when I was 4, so it was just me and Mum in a 1-bedroom apartment where the heat worked half the time. Watched her stretch every dollar until it screamed. By 25, I'd learned enough trades to be dangerous. Plumbing, basic electrical framing, drywall, and saved enough to take night classes in business management. My buddies Billy and Derek were in the same boat, skilled with their hands, but tired of making other people rich. At 27, we pulled our savings $17,000 each, which felt like $1 million back then, and launched our contracting business. We started with handyman jobs, fixing leaky faucets, patching drywall building decks, basically anything that paid the bills. Our office, my garage with 3 folding tables and a coffee maker that shorted out every third use. We lived on microwaved food, worked 16-hour days, and hustled like our lives depended on it, because they did. No safety net, no rich parents to bail us out, just 3 guys with calloused hands and big dreams. Our first real break came 8 months in when we underbid a kitchen job for a lawyer named Jack Harvard Law. Sharp as hell but chill. He liked our work but said, "Your contracts suck. 1 lawsuit and you're toast." I offered a bathroom reno for legal help. He passed on the remodel but offered to fix our paperwork for a fair rate. That kicked off both a solid friendship and the legal groundwork that would later save my ass. By year 2, Jack had helped us incorporate properly set up liability protections and create contracts that didn't leave us exposed. When he recommended us to a mid-sized property developer who needed reliable contractors, things finally started clicking. Fast forward 5 years, our 2-man operation now has 32 employees, 3 project managers, a real office downtown, and clears 7 figures annually. I grew up watching Mom get taken advantage of by losers who'd move in live off her, then bounce when she couldn't support their lazy asses anymore. That stays with you. Made me super aware of people using others for money. Enter Susan, 32, female. Met her at a charity fundraiser 7 years ago when my company was still struggling. She was working PR for a tech startup. All confident energy and perfect hair. Smoking hot tall fit the whole package, but also seemed smart and driven. She had this way of making everyone like her instantly. Within 6 months, we were living together, and we got married a year later. Small ceremony, about 60 people. The first few years were good. We both worked hard, built a life together, bought a house in my name, remarriage, thank God. I was expanding the business, and she was climbing the PR ladder at her firm. We traveled, had great times with friends, and seemed to be building something real. Then my company took off and things changed. Looking back, I can pinpoint exactly when things started to change, about 3 years ago, when we landed a $12 million contract that put us in a whole new league. My annual income tripled overnight. At first, the changes were small. Susan started taking longer lunches with her work friends. Then she began complaining about her boss being toxic and her co-workers being jealous of her. She'd come home with stories about office politics, positioning herself as the competent victim, surrounded by incompetence. "They're intimidated by me," she'd say, rolling her eyes. Not everyone can handle a woman in the workplace. Soon she was coming home later, always with some BS about happy hours for networking. Whatever the hell that means. When I'd text to check in, replies would come hours later. "Sorry, didn't see this." Still with clients. The truth was she was becoming less interested in her actual job and more interested in the lifestyle my income could provide. Then came the career crisis. "I'm not fulfilled in PR anymore," she said over dinner one night, rolling her eyes when I suggested more responsibility at her current job. "You just don't get it. I want to do something meaningful." I supported her, of course, told her to take time to figure it out, maybe explore options while keeping her current job. "Nope, I can't focus on my future if I'm stuck in a toxic present," she explained, as if quitting your job without a plan was the most logical thing in the world. Big mistake. 2 months of soul-searching. AKA shopping and spa days later, She announced her grand plan, becoming a personal stylist. She'd always dressed well, and apparently some of her rich friends had asked for her fashion advice. Seemed legit enough. I invested in her new venture, paid $7,500 for her to get certified through some exclusive program, built her a website, covered her startup costs about $15,000 for initial inventory business cards, promotional photo shoots. She seemed pumped about it, and I was happy to see her excited about something again. 6 months in, the excitement disappeared. Clients were demanding. Building a business was harder than expected. She started taking more me days to deal with the stress. "You don't understand," she'd say when I suggested maybe keeping a regular schedule or building a marketing plan. "This isn't construction. Creative work doesn't function on schedules." Meanwhile, I was working my arse off growing my contracting business, dealing with client headaches, and managing an expanding team. When I'd come home beat, she'd be on the couch scrolling Instagram, surrounded by shopping bags from high-end stores. "Business expenses," she'd say, with an eye roll, when I asked about the $4,700 charge from Neiman Billy. Building my brand. Not that you'd understand marketing. Our intimate life, which had been awesome during the early years, basically disappeared. We went from 4 to 5 times a week to maybe once every 2 weeks, always when she felt like it, always like she was doing me a favor. When I brought it up, she'd snap, "God, is that all you think about? You're literally pressuring me right now." Then she'd storm off to take a bath for 2 hours. The pattern was becoming clear. She was expert at making me feel like the problem whenever I questioned anything, but I didn't recognize it then. Then came Hannah, 37, female. This twice-divorced chick who became Susan's new bestie. I knew Hannah's type the moment I met her. Designer, everything, constantly checking her reflection, and a laugh that managed to sound both fake and condescending. Hannah had mastered living off the settlements. Her Instagram was a masterclass in high-maintenance lifestyle without visible means of support. She constantly fed Susan lines about knowing your worth and how men should provide. Hannah had a PhD in gold digging with a minor in alimony collection, and she was Susan's new life coach. Susan started spending more time with Hannah, weekend trips to Vegas, wine tours in Napa, shopping sprees, all on my dime. She'd come back with stories about guys hitting on them at clubs and how they'd gotten free bottles from some finance guys. The cost wasn't just financial. Susan started adopting Hannah's mindset, dropping comments like, "Men need to understand that supporting their wives isn't optional. It's the bare minimum." Or Hannah says a real man never questions his wife's spending. I started noticing sketchy stuff. Susan would turn her phone away when texting. Her Instagram was suddenly full of gym selfies. She wasn't even trying to hide it. Then she started mentioning a new client named Jordan, a personal trainer with an Instagram following who needed styling help for his fitness brand. He had about 50,000 followers, mostly women. She started spending more time working with him. Their sessions always ran late. She'd come home smelling like cologne. I'm not stupid, but I also don't make accusations without proof. Plus, I was busy with work most of the time, so I watched and waited. My business partner Billy noticed the change too. "Dude, you okay? You seem distracted lately," he asked after I messed up some measurements on a blueprint review. I brushed it off, but he wasn't buying it. "Look, my cousin went through something similar. Just protect yourself, okay? Keep records of everything." Billy had seen his cousin lose half his business to an ex who had contributed nothing but attitude and entitlement. That night I started keeping notes of everything. Dates, times, patterns, expenses. Not because I wanted to be that guy, but because my gut was screaming something was going to happen. Yeah, I wasn't wrong. The last 3 months were textbook gaslighting and disrespect. Susan was physically there, but mentally checked out. Always on her phone, ignoring me, making plans without saying a word. We hadn't had sex in over 2 months. Always some excuse, always too tired or stressed. One night I tried to initiate and she literally laughed and said, "Yeah, not happening. I've got an early client meeting." Then she proceeded to stay up until 2 a.m. watching Netflix. She'd make digs about my clothes, or my friends. "Maybe you should let me style you sometime. Those jeans are a bit too." She'd roll her eyes when I talked about work, question my business decisions while blowing thousands on her business expenses. "You know," she said one day while I was reviewing contractor bids, "if you had more business sense, you'd hire people to do that for you. Jordan says successful people delegate." Jordan. Yep, that dude. Two things happened that showed me what was coming. First, about a month ago, I came home early from a job site. Project finished ahead of schedule. It was around 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Susan didn't know I was coming. I walked in to find her and Hannah drinking sparkling water in our kitchen mid-conversation. "Just need to secure your exit first," Hannah was saying. "Get your finances in order before you make any moves. My second husband tried to hide assets, but my lawyer found everything. These types always think they're so smart." They both froze when they saw me. Susan recovered first with a fake smile. "Riley, you're home early." When I asked about this exit, Hannah claimed they were helping a friend leave her toxic marriage. I nodded, not buying it for a second. Instead of confronting them, I decided to play the long game. That night I called Jack and laid out what I'd heard. He answered on the first ring. He straight up said, "She's planning to leave and take as much as she can. We need to get ahead of this, but we play it completely by the book." The next morning I met Jack at his office where we couldn't be overheard. He laid out a plan. First rule, everything has to be legal and ethical. Second rule, document constructive abandonment, not just physical leaving. That means tracking a pattern of behavior showing she's checking out of the marriage emotionally, financially, and physically. Third, protect premarital assets with proper documentation. For the next 3 weeks, I executed Jack's advice while acting completely normal around Susan. We documented the business's value with meticulous records, showing how my premarital investments and 60-hour work weeks created its growth. Jack had our accountant prepare a full valuation report with growth charts dating back to pre-marriage. I installed security cameras in common areas only legally compliant per Jack and backed all footage to a secure cloud account. I built a spreadsheet tracking her pattern of constructive abandonment, missed events, nights away, intimacy refusals, and signs she checked out of the marriage. Jack advised me to leave all finances untouched until after filing. "Don't give her ammunition by cutting off funds pre-filing," he warned. "Courts hate financial coercion. Wait until you filed properly." I legally recorded conversations in shared spaces, kitchen, living room, when I was present. One-party consent. I catalogued all financial records, especially her excessive spending, found over $7,000 in gifts, purchased for Jay over 3 months. Weekend getaways labeled as business development. Created a detailed inventory of all valuables in the house with receipts and documentation of what was purchased before marriage versus after. Then the second thing, Susan's phone buzzed on the counter while she was in the shower. Normally, I'd never check her phone, but the preview caught my eye. "Jordan can't wait for next week when we don't have to hide anymore." I took a quick screenshot with my phone. Evidence secured, but I still didn't confront her. I needed her to make the first move. Abandonment would strengthen my case massively. That Monday started like any other day. I went to work early, had a good day, picked up some prime ribeyes on the way home. Susan had been distant all weekend, constantly texting and taking calls in another room, but I acted normal. If something was coming, I wanted to see her play her hand. I was at the grill when she walked in, fresh from another business lunch with Hannah that had stretched to 6 hours, according to her Instagram stories, of them drinking champagne at some fancy rooftop bar. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking at me when she dropped the bomb. "I'm moving out tonight. I need space, just like that, casual as ordering coffee." I stopped flipping the steaks and looked at her, feeling weirdly calm. The moment had finally arrived, and instead of shock, I felt relieved. When I asked where she was going, she sighed like I was being annoying. "Jordan's helping me out with a place to stay. The personal trainer I've been styling. He has a spare room, right? The client she'd been screwing for months. Pretty sure the spare room was his bed with benefits." "If that's what you want," I said, turning back to the steaks that were now starting to burn. She looked surprised by how chill I was, like she'd expected me to beg or cry. Not happening. What she didn't know was that I'd been mentally checking out for months as I watched her wreck our marriage. "I'm serious, Riley. Don't try to contact me. I need to figure things out on my own." "Fine," I said. "Your choice." She grabbed her suitcase and the keys to her Range Rover, leased under my business, $1,100 monthly, and walked out. Just like that. 7 years done. I saved what I could of dinner, ate alone at our kitchen, and took a moment to process. Then I immediately reactivated the plan Jack and I had prepared. First, I texted Jack. "She just left. It's time." His response was immediate. "Taking the bait. Perfect. Document everything right now while it's fresh." I recorded a video statement detailing exactly what had happened, including her explicitly saying she was moving to Jordan's place and telling me not to contact her. I backed up all security footage showing her packing and leaving voluntarily. Then I called our building manager to verify that the moment she left, her access code to the building was logged in the system, further proof of her voluntary departure. I was capturing abandonment in real time. Jack arrived at my place early the next morning with the already prepared divorce filing. We reviewed everything one last time, adding the final details about her departure. We filed the papers that morning. With the filing complete, it was time to execute the financial part of the plan. First, her extra MX Platinum, the card she'd maxed out 3 times this year alone on designer crap and networking dinners, called the concierge line directly. I need to cancel a supplementary card immediately. Took 5 minutes. Done. Her Visa Black card. Same deal. Click. Gone. The automatic monthly transfer of $4,000 from my business account to her personal checking, the one that funded her self-care while her stylist business barely paid for her coffee. Click. Cancelled. Financial freedom achieved faster than she could say. Gucci sale. Our phone plan was in my name. Me and her mother, who I'd added 2 years ago because Susan begged me to left their lines active but disabled international roaming and premium data. Susan loved posting from the first-class lounge during her inspiration trips to Paris and Milan, aka shopping vacations with Hannah. That was over. Her Range Rover lease. Called my business accountant, removed her from the authorized drivers list, told him to start the process to return the vehicle. I spent the next 2 hours locking everything down, changed all passwords. Netflix, Hulu. Amazon, our home security system, moved money from our joint checking to my private business account, called my wealth manager, to secure investment accounts. She wanted space. Fine, I was giving her the whole package and sending her to Mars. Jack and I had also prepared a complete evidence packet security footage showing her coming home at 2 a.m. from styling sessions, documented patterns of constructive abandonment, and financial records showing her misuse of marital funds. Everything organized, duplicated, and stored both physically and digitally. When Jack asked how long before she'd be served, I told him to wait until she realized the cards stopped working and come asking for money, which I knew she would. That afternoon, I called a team meeting at the office. I didn't share personal details, just that I was going through a divorce and might need some flexibility in the coming weeks. My business partners, Billy and Derek, immediately offered support. "Whatever you need, man," Billy said. "We got everything covered." Derek, always the practical one, added, "Bro, just make sure the business is protected. We've all got families depending on this." I assured them everything was locked down tight. That night I slept better that night than I had in months, like removing a weight I hadn't realized was crushing me. 3 days of awesome silence followed. I met with our corporate attorney, updated my will, and changed the locks. I boxed up Susan's stuff, neatly cleared out our bathroom of her products, seriously like 100+ bottles and jars of expensive creams, and finally watched those Christopher Nolan movies she always refused to sit through. Turns out, Inception makes more sense than Susan's loyalty. During those days, I focused on myself, hit the gym every morning before work started, meal prepping, instead of ordering takeout, called my mum for the first time in weeks without Susan interrupting to make the conversation about her. My project manager, Mia, noticed the change immediately. "Boss, whatever you're doing, keep it up. You look so good." Then Thursday night rolled around. I was just finishing a call with a client about their kitchen renovation when someone started pounding on my front door around 9:30 p.m. The security camera showed Susan outside. Her hair was in a messy ponytail. The Range Rover was nowhere in sight. Karma showed up faster than an Amazon Prime delivery. I opened the door, but stayed in the doorway, blocking entry. The process server Jack had on standby was sitting in a car down the street waiting for my text. My card was declined. She blurted out, skipping any greeting, "The AMX." At dinner with Jordan and some potential clients, it was freaking humiliating. When I calmly told her I'd cancelled it along with the visa and monthly transfers, she looked at me like I was insane. Her voice got louder with each word. "Why would you do that? You can't just cut me off. That's my money too." I explained simply that she'd moved out, said not to contact her, and was no longer part of my household, so she no longer had access to household expenses. She started fake crying. "You can't just cut me off. We're married. Half of everything is mine. My attorney is going to destroy you." I sent a quick text to the process server. She's here. Come now. When I mentioned I'd filed for divorce, her face went from angry to shocked, real quick. You what? You can't do that. I was just taking a break to figure things out. She tried to backpedal, claiming she just needed space and denying the affair, but I cut her off. I took out my phone and played a legally recorded conversation from our kitchen where she had told me she was moving to Jordan's and not to contact her, then showed her documentation of abandonment, a timeline of her systematic withdrawal from the marriage over months. Everything is documented legally and ethically, I said calmly. Before she could respond, the process server arrived and handed her the divorce papers. She finally realized this wasn't going according to Hannah's playbook. She wasn't calling the shots. You'll regret this, she snapped, tears magically disappearing. I'll take half of everything. I made you. Without me networking with clients, you'd still be working out of your garage. I deserve what's mine. Through the camera, I watched her completely lose it on my porch, including kicking one of the planters and hurting her foot. She ripped open the divorce papers, frantically scanning them. Eventually, an Uber pulled up, and she limped to it, still cursing. Oscar-worthy performance. If they had an award for best tantrum when your ATM card gets declined. I poured myself a drink and texted Jack. Papers served. Meltdown complete. His response perfect. Now we wait for the counterattack. He wasn't wrong. The next week was when the real circus began. First came the calls to my office. My project manager, Mia, fielded 6 calls on Monday alone from Susan, demanding to speak to me about an urgent financial matter, and later claiming there was a family emergency. Boss, your wife keeps calling. Mia said, looking uncomfortable. She said something about her mother being in the hospital, but when I offered to take a message, she hung up. I thanked Mia and told her to block Susan's number from the office line. She's not my wife anymore, and her mother is fine. Then the flying monkey showed up. Mutual friends started texting with lines like Susan's in a bad place and cold move filing so fast. I gave them all the same quick response about Susan leaving our marriage to live with another man, and most backed off. Our friend group split almost immediately. The real ones, like my buddy Ryan, who'd known me since high school, stayed loyal. Dude, I always got weird vibes from her, he admitted over lunch. Too perfect, like she was playing a role. Others took Susan's side, including couples we had vacationed with. One guy, Trevor, had the nerve to lecture me about working on the marriage. Ironic coming from someone who cheated on his girlfriend twice that I knew of. Then came the social media campaign. Susan updated her Instagram bio to healing from trauma and started posting quotes about financial abuse and controlling men. Real subtle. Nothing says I'm healing like trashing your ex online while shacking up with your personal trainer. She even had the audacity to start a GoFundMe titled Escaping Financial Abuse with a goal of $50,000. It raised $237 before being taken down after Jack sent a cease and desist letter with evidence of her voluntary departure and spending habits. The boss level arrived in the form of Hannah, Susan's bestie and divorce coach. Tuesday night, she called from a blocked number, screeching, "What the actual heck do you think you're doing? Filing for divorce without even talking to Susan, cutting her off financially. She built that business with you. No one likes a guy who can't take care of his wife. You're going to be blacklisted in this town." I set her straight. She walked out by choice, told me not to contact her, and no, she didn't build with me. She dressed rich housewives while I built a construction business. Our talk went downhill as Hannah threatened me with her fancy divorce attorney, Bradley. When I mentioned my own legal team and Susan's obvious affair with Jordan, there was a pause. Interesting. Hannah hadn't known about Jordan. Jordan is just helping her through a difficult time. Hannah recovered quickly. He's being a gentleman, which is more than I can say for you. When she switched to demanding Susan's stuff, I told her everything was boxed up, and Susan could schedule a time to get it with a witness present and an inventory list. She tried to come by yesterday to get some essentials, but you've changed the locks, Hannah complained. She needs her things. She had to borrow Jordan's sweatshirt for her meeting with clients yesterday. Gotcha. The security cameras had caught Susan trying her key in both doors. I reminded Hannah that breaking into my premarital property was trespassing, and I had it all on video. The entitlement was unreal. They actually thought Susan could walk out on our marriage but keep all the financial perks. The classic have your cake and eat it too move I'd seen ruin too many friends. Hannah wrote the Gold Digger Handbook, but I'd already read the Cliff Notes. Not this time. A few days later, Susan tried a new angle showing up at one of our construction sites. My foreman Carlos called me immediately. "Boss, your wife is here asking questions about the project budget and talking to clients," he said, sounding confused. "Should I have security escort her out? I told Carlos to keep her away from clients but not to make a scene. Just tell her she needs to leave or you'll call the police for trespassing." When I arrived 20 minutes later, she was sitting in her friend's car across the street watching. I ignored her and went straight to work. After an hour, they drove away. That evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You think you're so smart, watch your back. I know people who can make your life difficult." I forwarded it to Jack, who added it to our documentation. "Threats now. She's getting desperate." Good. The next morning, I discovered someone had posted negative reviews of my business on Google, Yelp, and Facebook, all from new accounts with no history. The reviews claimed we'd overcharged, used substandard materials, and harassed female clients. Jack had them removed within 24 hours by providing evidence of targeted harassment. We also filed a police report documenting the threats and review bombing. The next week brought the most ridiculous attempt yet. Susan's mother showing up at my office crying and begging me to fix things with her daughter. "She's devastated, Riley," she said, dabbing at her eyes. "She made one mistake and you're punishing her like this." I had always respected Susan's mom, but I wasn't buying the act. Susan moved in with another man and told me not to contact her. That's not one mistake. That's a choice. She was confused. You work so much, she felt neglected. She continued not addressing the Jordan situation at all. I reminded her gently that Susan had access to joint credit cards with a $50,000 limit, a $4,000 monthly allowance, and a luxury SUV, all while I worked so much to provide that lifestyle. And she chose to leave all that for a personal trainer with a studio apartment. I concluded that wasn't confusion. That was a plan that backfired. She, without another word. I felt bad for her. She genuinely seemed to believe Susan's version of events, but I wasn't going to be manipulated by anyone, even a crying mother-in-law. The next few months were straight out of a legal thriller. Susan Venmo requested $2,000 for emergency, which I declined with the comment, "You requested no contact." Then came a formal letter from Bradley, Susan's attorney, demanding immediate temporary spousal support of $12,000 monthly plus continued use of the Range Rover. It denied all claims of cheating and claimed Susan left because of my emotional neglect and controlling behavior. Jack laughed when I forwarded it to him. "They're fishing. They've got nothing." He drafted a response that was legally sound, but basically said, "Go pound sand," ending with an offer of a one-time $5,000 payment as settlement for all claims if she signed a full release and NDA. Bradley responded with more threats. Jack responded with evidence time-stamped security footage from common areas, showing constructive abandonment records of her spending history, showing she'd blown through over $90,000 in the past year alone on personal stuff, while contributing basically nothing to household expenses. We also included detailed business valuation reports, showing how the company's growth came directly from my premarital investment and 60-hour work weeks. The documentation clearly established the business as separate property, not marital assets subject to division. Bradley's next letter had a completely different tone. Now they were open to negotiation and hoping to resolve this amicably. Funny how fast "I'll destroy you in court" turns into "let's be reasonable" when faced with actual evidence. Meanwhile, I was still rebuilding. Hit the gym 6 days a week, reconnected with friends. Susan had pulled me away from and focused on work projects I'd been putting off. My company landed 2 major new clients, partly because I was fully focused for the first time in years. I started a side project too, renovating a classic Dodge I'd bought for cheap, something I'd always wanted to do, but Susan had called a waste of time and garage space. Now my time was my own again. My business partners noticed the change. "Man, you're killing it lately," Billy said after we landed a $2.5 million commercial project. "Divorce looks good on you." Susan finally scheduled a time to collect her things. Jordan came with her, tall guy, good-looking in that generic fitness influencer way, but clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He stood awkwardly in the foyer while Susan and Hannah went through the boxes I'd packed. Honestly, I felt bad for the guy, LOL. Jack came over as my witness. Our corporate attorney sent a paralegal to observe. The vibe was tense. When Susan tried claiming my Rolex watch as hers, I shut it down immediately. No, Susan. It was a gift from my partners when we landed the Westbrook renovation. I have the card they signed. That's BS. She snapped. I picked it out for you. It's basically mine. What kind of man takes back gifts from his ex-wife? I corrected. And the kind who has documentation throughout the process. Hannah wouldn't shut up, commenting on every item. You're keeping that art piece. Susan picked that out. You have no taste without her. Yes, with my credit card from an artist I introduced her to. The best part was watching them try to fit suitcases, boxes, and garbage bags into Jordan's Tesla Model 3. Not nearly enough space. Jordan stressed, Susan pissed, Hannah helping and making everything worse. It was like watching a clown car in reverse. But instead of clowns coming out, it was the consequences of Susan's actions going in. The Range Rover would have been useful today, I said, as they struggled. Susan gave me a death glare. Eventually, they had to call an Uber XL for the overflow. As they finally pulled away, Jack turned to me. You dodged a bullet, my friend. No doubt about it. Fast forward 6 months. The court date finally arrived. I'd prepared meticulously with Jack reviewing every document, practicing potential questions. Susan showed up in a conservative outfit, trying to look like a victimized housewife. Quite the change from her usual Instagram style. Her attorney Bradley opened with dramatic claims about my financial control and how Susan had sacrificed her career for my business. He demanded half the business value, the house, and ongoing support. Then Jack presented our case, methodical, documented, and devastating. He showed Susan's social media post from the very days she claimed to be working tirelessly on my business. Poolside in Miami with Hannah captioned, Executive Time. He presented business formation documents showing the company was created 3 years before we met. Bank statements proving my 60-hour work weeks built it, not her occasional client dinners. The judge wasn't impressed by Bradley's theatrics. When Susan claimed on the stand that she'd built the business alongside me, Jack simply showed her employment records at her PR firm during those exact years, proving she wasn't even involved. Mrs. Wilson, the judge finally said the court finds your claims regarding the business particularly unsupported by evidence. The documentation clearly shows this was your husband's premarital asset that you had minimal involvement with. The final judgment came down almost as Jack predicted. Susan got a one-time settlement that was barely 5% of what she'd demanded. The business remained 100% mine. The house stayed mine. No ongoing support. The prenup I'd insisted on held up perfectly. The look on her face when the judge read the ruling, as the MasterCard commercials say, priceless. After court, I overheard Jordan telling Susan they needed to talk about their living situation. Apparently, supporting her shopping habit wasn't in his budget after all. Shocking. I sold the house the next month. Too many memories and too big for one person. Bought a modern loft downtown, walking distance to my office. Business is thriving. Life was better than ever without the dead weight. Then 3 weeks ago, my doorbell rang late on a Tuesday night. I checked the security camera to find Susan standing there alone. She looked different. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup. She'd lost the entitled attitude, but only because she'd lost everything else too. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway. What do you want, Susan? I need help, she said quietly. Jordan and I broke up. He was just using me. I'm staying with a friend, but she wants me out by next week. I can't afford a place on my own. The settlement money was gone, blown through in 6 months on investments Hannah had recommended, plus shopping and desperate attempts to maintain her lifestyle. Hannah won't return my calls, she continued. My parents won't help. I've got nowhere to go. Then came the pitch. I made a mistake, Riley. I see that now. We could try again. I know what I threw away. I almost laughed. No, I said simply. That's not happening. Then can you at least loan me some money just until I get back on my feet? I've got a job interview at Nordstrom next week. I looked at her standing there. The woman who told me I'd regret divorcing her, who tried to take half my business, who cheated and lied. Now asking for a handout, Susan. I said you wanted space and independence. You've got it. Good luck with your interview. As I closed the door, I heard her say, You're really going to leave me with nothing. After 7 years, I reopened the door slightly. No, Susan, you left yourself with nothing. I'm just respecting your choice. Then I closed the door for good. Sometimes I think about the years invested in someone who could throw it all away so easily. Red flags I missed, compromises that were all one-sided, lessons learned the hard way. But the best revenge is living well, setting boundaries, letting her face the natural consequences of her choices. She wanted out. I gave her exactly that. All of it. And watching reality hit her from a safe distance. Damn priceless. If you've read this far, thanks for letting me vent. If you're going through something similar, stay strong. Know your worth. Protect yourself legally and financially. Don't let fake tears cloud your judgment, their choices, their consequences.